Hi, in today's video, we're going to be drawing this picture right here. I've actually just finished and we're going to rearrange some of the order of the video clips. So I'm going to play this at the beginning, even though I've already finished. Thank you. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Coloring with Connor. In this episode, we'll be coloring in Mario from Super Mario Galaxy flying in front of a planet. And what I've done so far is I've selected a palette just for the sky and for the clouds. And so that's what all these markers over here are for. They're off screen, but you can't see them. But what I've done is I've made my palette here. So these ones will be for the sky. These are my grays. These are gray blues. And then these ones I anticipate to use for the clouds a little bit, mixed in with some neutral grays. So I'm just going to tone it with a touch of purple. And it's kind of like this lightest bluish color, and I think it will look good. We'll see how it goes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to always start with my lightest color. Now, when you're doing big open areas, your biggest enemy is going to be time. Okay, so I'm not going to do a huge. It's not going to be a ton of this light blue coming out from outside of the planet, but there's going to be enough of it. And basically with my, I always want to start with the lightest marker possible, and it almost becomes kind of like a blending marker a little bit later. Because what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up mixing all these different blues together on the paper, and the lightest blue color will end up becoming more of a blending tool more than anything. When it's all said and done, you'll be able to see very little of this blue color that we have right now. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm getting the paper wet. And by getting the paper wet, it allows me to kind of mix, the ink on there. So I'm doing it kind of quick right now because I realize that if I go pretty slow, the ink might kind of dry up on me. So I'm just getting it started, okay? Like most of this color won't even be showing up by the end of this thing. And I already went into his hand. Let's see if I can erase it with the marker. I'm a little bit nervous from doing my first episode. So this is a blender marker. And it's not... It kind of erases a little bit. So I can work with that. I think at the end of the day, no one's really going to notice that mistake. Yeah, I got the glove a little bit dirty here, but we're going to end up coloring that in later anyway with a neutral gray. And so that shouldn't be too much of a big issue. Look, guys, I'm teaching you how to do this for fun, okay? Bob Ross is kind of my inspiration here, and, you know, he doesn't train people to be Picasso. He trains the ordinary person to be able to do something that is fun, that pretty much everyone can do. This really isn't all that complicated. Yeah, there are certain techniques and some strategies involved, but for the most part, it's all pretty simple. A lot of it is getting to know how the ink works with the paper in particular. Like if I were to do the same drawing on a different type of paper, it might come out completely different. I'm actually not sure what the weight of this paper is, but if I had to guess, it's probably between like 40 and 60. Now, if you go with computer paper, which is 20 pound, it's a lot thinner, so the nice thing is it doesn't require as much ink. But the bad part is it dries up a little bit quicker, so it's harder to fade stuff together. Alright, so now I'm going into my second darkest color. And I'm just going to kind of go around like so. I'm just doing this kind of quick. And I'm going to end up coming back in with that light blue that I started with. And we're just going to kind of go back and forth. So you kind of go lightest color first. Second lightest color. Back to the lightest color. Back to the second lightest color. Third lightest color. Back to the second lightest color, back to the lightest color. And you just kind of keep going back and forth, and you're going to end up kind of fading everything together. And we're blending it all together on the paper itself. I realize I'm doing this a little bit quick. This is my first time filming this, so I'm trying to do a good job. I'm trying to narrate while paying attention to what I'm doing, and it's a little bit tricky. I'm not pushing too hard with this marker right now, because I want to be able to fade into. So I'm going back in with the lightest marker now, that first one that I started with, and we're just gonna see if we can get a good fade going here. I don't know. I might have gotten greedy and tried to do too much at once, just because there's so much paper involved here that maybe I didn't get it quite. Maybe I added too much surface area and this ink is too dry to blend properly. But we'll see. I'm just gonna keep coming back and forth, back and forth. And you can see when I start, I've got these lines. It's clearly two different markers right here. So hopefully I go over this with this marker and it kind of just brings it all together. Okay. I'm not going to get it all on the second try, on the second pass either. But it's going to be an improvement. So I can come back in with this blue if I want. And actually this time I'm going to go a little bit further, because I plan on fading this into the next shade of blue, which is a little bit darker. So it's about transitioning. It's I think of like a baton race, and they don't throw the batons from one person to another. They hand them off. And basically what I'm doing is, and if you're going from one marker to another, you're essentially tossing it. But if I'm kind of fading the markers together, it's kind of like I'm blending them together and I'm handing it off, handing the baton off. And that just makes it a little bit easier. It looks a lot smoother, and yeah, I think you'll be happy. You just have to be kind of patient. Now, the key things when you're dealing with a lot of space like this is always having a wet edge. Everything, it's okay if it's kind of dry in here, but I want the edge to be wet. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with that next darkest marker. And I can always end up going darker, so I can always end up bringing this in a little bit more if I need to. I think I'm going to bring it in already a little bit more. And I can try it. See, if I do like a circle around it, it could end up leaving a line. So I just want to be careful that, you know, when I put the ink down, that along the edge is kind of, I'm not pushing as hard, just because I want it to be able to kind of fade into the next one. So I'm just putting a light amount down right now. I'm not pushing too hard. Maybe I push a little harder in this white area. But when I'm coming back into my lighter area, I'm just doing it nice and soft. And I want that area to be nice and wet. Okay? Keeping wet paper is key to fading everything. If it dries on you, you won't be able to fade it. Which is why I'm going quick, because I don't want my ink to dry on me. I looked around for the best picture to do my very first video with, and well, I'm a huge Mario fan. Mario 64 is probably one of my all-time favorite games. My grandpa got it for me shortly before he passed away back in the 90s. And then I hadn't played it in a while, and then I saw a bunch of people speedrunning it online. And I had never actually seen speedrunning before. It's basically just beating a game from start to finish as fast as humanly possible. And without cheating, or, you know, it depends on the game, but for the most part, it's not really cheating. But in Mario 64, no, there's not any cheating. It's just raw skill, really. And it's fun because it's giving new life to these old games, and I have a little bit more trouble getting into new games these days. So, okay, so I did that. I'm going to come back in with the lightest marker and just try to kind of fade everything in as much as I can. I'll probably come back in with that middle marker, that second one. And, like, your feedback on these videos is going to be really, really important. I doubt anybody will ever watch exactly what I'm doing right now. But this is just a good practice round. I mean, I don't really know if I want to stick through with this. I do really enjoy the coloring and everything, but it is very time consuming. This piece could very well take 5 or 6 hours. Sorry for the cat. And you know what? I'm just going to go... I'm going to be friendly with my PB8. So this is my middle marker. I'm going to be coming up, really getting the ink down. I'm not afraid to go out because I'm planning to go darker. So, I mean, you can always go darker with the markers, but, like, you don't want to go too dark right away. You kind of just want to work your way up to the darkness. Don't go for broke and try to pick the right dark marker right away. It's usually not a good idea. Besides, if you go for that really dark marker right away, what you're going to miss out on is getting the paper wet. You really want to get that paper wet because that allows you to fade that dark marker into a lighter marker. That's pretty good. Alright, let's go with the PB5. Now we're going real dark. This is probably about the darkest I want to go. And again, I'm just gonna work the perimeter right now. I'm not gonna work this area because I'm just kind of working my way out. And again, I really want that ink to be wet on the outer edge. So I'm not delaying too much. I'm not gonna get caught up in some small area over here and allow the ink over here to start drying on me. That's just not going to happen. It just won't work out that way. If I were more of a beginner, or maybe feeling a little less ambitious, I might break this into halves. Just do the first half, like the left side of the sky, and then do the right half later. But the problem is sometimes it's a little bit harder to remember exactly the order in which you did things. So, like, if I split this up left and right, the left and right might end up looking slightly different. So you just have to pay attention to what you're doing, and you'll be good. And we're gonna have lots of happy mistakes on this channel. A lot of the fun part of this hobby is seeing how much you can salvage something. So now I'm just coming back in with that third marker. I'm basically just stepping up, stepping down, stepping up, stepping down. And right here, I accidentally went too far in. So I'm going to see what I can do. So fortunately, the ink is still a little bit wet. So I'm coming in with my lightest color. And I'm just going to soak it. Okay? This is wet. It's not dried yet. So you can actually make this ink lighter. It's salvageable as long as the paper is wet. Which for me, it's still pretty wet. So I'm not really loving the fade that I'm getting here. But as long as that ink is staying wet, I still have a chance to save it. Just gotta keep the ink wet. That's like the name of the game here is time and how fast can the ink dry. You want to keep it wet. If you let it dry all the way and you try to fade, you end up getting more of like a cartoony type of shadow. It doesn't really fade in. It's more of like a step really. I'm going to come back in with this dark color. And I'm going to try to prevent having any sort of line like right here. And I like to just kind of... You don't want to do one solid line like this. In fact, you're better off doing something more like this and kind of varying your pressure. And that will help create a fade a little bit later when you're going for that fade. Now the rest of it, I'm gonna fill in, but I'm gonna fill in kind of sporadically because I'm gonna try putting in like these purple colors. So it might not be amazing. We're experimenting. We're gonna do a lot of experimentation on this channel, and we're just gonna learn together. Simple as that. You know, I have learned that you can usually save stuff. You can pretty much always go darker. You can't really go lighter. We'll get into the blender marker. The blender marker helps get a little bit lighter, but it's not like a Hail Mary. I mean, it'll save you, but only so much. Okay, so now I've kind of got that dark, spotchy areas. What I don't like is that I don't like this fade right here. So I'm going to go back to my PB6, I believe it was. And I'm with this PB6. The PB6 is lighter than the outer color, so I'm not afraid to come up. And in fact, coming up a little bit and filling in these blanks is going to give me a little... Not only is it going to allow the ink to be wet, more wet, but it's also going to create kind of like a less of a flat color in the background because I don't have to go over every 100% of the area. And so in different places where it mixes, it's going to look a little bit different. And then I'm going to throw in this purple color a little bit later. And I think it's going to look pretty cool. I mean, I could totally butcher it, but you know, we'll just see what happens. It'll be fun. I can't tell if that's a cloud. Yeah, that's a cloud. And we'll come here, we'll fade this together. Fade all this. Let me know about the lighting. You know, your feedback is really going to help this channel out. You know, we're just having some fun. If you want to see my face versus just the colors. Because right now, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't have a reference picture. I printed off 2 of these, but I usually print off 2. One is practice and one is the real deal. But I decided to just kind of go for the real deal right off the bat here. Okay, so now I'm going to try some of these other colors. And I'm going to do it kind of like in cobwebs, or I don't even know how to describe that. Feel a lot of them. And right now we are learning. We're seeing what's going on. Pretty happy with it so far. Now what's keep in mind is like when I'm fading, like right now I'm using this color into this color. Sure, they look way different right now, but since the ink is wet, when I mix them together, they're end up being a lot closer than you think. So sometimes I might recommend just grabbing the 2 markers and having a blank space and try getting it wet and see what happens. All right, we're gonna try a different shade of blue here. So I basically just want to have the background be these different shades. And basically what I'm going to do is, it's going to look a little spotty at first, but that's okay, because I'm going to end up coming back in with that one marker that I was using initially, kind of a darker one, and I'm going to try to fade everything together, so Should end up looking pretty okay, I think. This ink is pretty wet, so it helps. I've got multiple layers of ink down. The more layers of ink, the longer it'll take to dry, and the more blending power you have. I guess the only trade-off is it uses more ink, so which costs money. But you know, these markers aren't all that expensive. I like the Ohuhu markers. I think they're the best bang for your buck. You get like a 320 piece set for like $200, and it's lasted me a very long time. I'm still using it right now. I will probably replace it at some point. Because what ends up happening is you end up using, like, you might have like the perfect sky color, and you end up using that like right away. But then like some weird dark purple color you never use. And so you end up replacing these sets. So I'm coming back in with that original dark marker, and I'm just going to go over everything and try to get it all wet. Yeah. Bob Ross would be proud right now. So let me know about the camera angle and what you think works best. I know this type of video probably doesn't get very many viewers, but you know, it's a passion of mine, something I enjoy. 36, I need something new to do in my life. It's good to be good at something. I'm going kind of quickly here, so I'm messing up some of these cloud areas, but that's okay. Okay, now I'm going to come back in with PB8 and try to fade all of this together. Okay, PB8 was my second lightest color. That looks pretty good for the sky. Okay, I'm going to take my sky colors and I'm just going to set them to the side. I didn't end up using gray. I don't think I need it. But what I'm going to do for these clouds is I've got my neutral markers here, N0, N1, N2. These are actually Copics. I prefer these ones over the Ohuhu ones, but I just kind of mix them together. And then what I'm going to do is probably try this one. This one I'm going to send back because I'm definitely not going to use that dark purple. But this looks good, this looks good, and possibly those ones later. So we'll go ahead and get everything wet with N0. So when I do these clouds, I kind of do these swirling patterns like this. And we're going to come back through a little bit later. And we're already dragging bits of blue from before. You know, I probably should have waited for the ink to dry since it's boarding up on it, but you know, whatever. We're going to put a touch of blue in these anyway. I don't even know how this marker might be dead. Yeah, I'm going to use the other side. So this is N0. So it looks kind of dark right now, but it lines up when it dries off. It'll still look pretty white. It won't be as white as like blank paper, but it still is pretty good. This marker might be running dry. Fortunately, I have a backup one. Yep, that marker's dead. Okay, now it's coming with N1. We'll do something similar. And while it's good to get caught up in small details every once in a while, you have to kind of keep in mind what the final image is going to look like. Where is the attention going to be drawn to? I kind of like to start my images in the background, or maybe something that's not going to capture as much attention. So now I'm coming in with N2. So this one's a little bit darker even. And this is about the darkest I'm going to go. But you know, where's your attention going to be drawn when you see the picture? Because chances are you're not really going to look at the clouds very much. You just want to have the illusion that it looks kind of real. So we got some storm clouds coming in here. Alright, moment of truth. Let's try this. I might just butchered it. I think I just did. So sometimes I go too fast for my own good. Alright, let's come back in with N0. N0 will be our blending. Kind of ruining it, aren't I? Let's try this over here. Oh, I like this color. I don't want to make it one solid color. I really want to mix. I'm mixing grays in the darks and lights in the darks. And I'm also going to mix this, these purplish colors. And that will kind of give like 2 layers of cloud level versus just one if I stick with only the grays. So let's try coming in here. Okay, maybe a little bit of this one. This one sticks out a little bit more, so I'm just gonna use a touch of it. Oh, my fingerprint. Come back in with N1. Go over some of those darker areas. I'm not the best at clouds, I will fully admit. And let's try going back to N0. And what I like to do is just, if things look a little spotty, and fortunately I keep the ink pretty wet, I have to kind of just come back in with my lightest color, and I just kind of blend it all together. I bring all the colors together, and it'll look good when it's all said and done. I know these clouds look a little bit darker than, say, the white edge around it, but I think when it's all said and done, it will actually look pretty good because it'll still be the lightest parts of the whole piece. And also, I'm going to show you guys another little technique. So this is called the blender pen, and basically it works kind of like an eraser. And I want to have my light source in the upper right because I'm right-handed, and it's just typically where I go to. So what I can do is this will kind of fade everything together and make it a little bit lighter. It's going to be pretty subtle because I'm using like a kind of like a light gray color. But if it were a darker gray color, you would notice it quite a bit more. So right now I'm just kind of doing the upper right hand side of the clouds. It's not amazing, but I think it will actually look pretty good when it's all said and done. Like I said, I don't think your attention is really going to be drawn to the clouds. I think you're just going to kind of see them. And they do mix in. I think the purple kind of goes well with the dark blue background. Okay, so now I've fast forwarded a little bit, and I've selected my palette for basically everything else, from the gloves and wings to his clothing to his skin to the background, the world, everything like that. So I've selected my colors right here. I've always got my extra markers just in case, but I like to select my markers ahead of time just because I don't want to waste time looking for the right marker while I have wet ink. I just want to be prepared. The other thing that I like doing is I know that I'm not going to repeat colors. So like, let's say, for example, he were wearing a green shirt. I could select these greens for the world, and I know that when I'm selecting the markers that which ones have been used and which ones haven't. So let's get going. Let's do the world. So the way I see it is it's going to be kind of bright on the outside and a little bit darker towards the inside. So let me get organized here. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is use my lightest green. I actually added this at the end here. I'm going to add it to the kind of the outside first. And I want this part to kind of glow. Okay, so I'm actually going to... I want it to be more of a defined edge. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to allow this to dry. And so I'm just going to put the ink down. I'll set the markers to the side for a while, and I'll come back and we'll rework this, and it'll make sense. So I'm just doing the light edge right now. Here's the world. Here's the ocean. And so I was careful. I know that this blue is similar to this blue, which I don't like now that I'm looking at it. But it will change. I was selecting different markers. However, this comes from a different set. You can see this one's a little bit more of an oval shape. So this is from the fine and the broad things. Let's add that part out. Oops. So I'm just going to color in these mountains. I think it's going to be pretty two-tone, so I'll allow these to dry. And what you can actually do is kind of use the same marker a second time after it dries, and it adds a little bit of shade. But here I have another one. Let's see, this one should come out a little bit darker. See, that might not be enough contrast there. Could be. So what I can do is, since I kind of want this outer edge to be highlighted, I can take my blender marker and just go along the edge. Now you gotta be quick when you use the blender marker because it does kind of leave like sort of a streaks behind it a little bit. But you can see now that outer edge is becoming nice and highlighted. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Okay, while we wait for these guys to dry, let's do the castle, shall we? Let's do this little star. So, even though it's nice and simple, I really don't like to do things in just one color. Here I have a yellow and I have kind of a goldish color. So we'll start with the lightest color, which is the yellow. And I'm basically just going to tip the edges of the star. And I'll go back over this with the yellow. Kind of fade it together. And I think that looks just a little bit nicer. It's really subtle, but I think it goes a long way if you keep doing it in various places. And we're going to do the same thing for the castle here too. So I've selected a cool gray for the building part. And so I'm going to start with the lightest gray that I have. I have 3 different colors, but I'm basically just going to do everything in this light gray. I'm not really worried about excess ink right now. I just want the ink down. I want to get it wet. It also kind of just gives me like a benchmark. It kind of tells me where everything's at. Like right now I can say this is actually, it's fairly light, but I think I'm going to keep it. Now we're going to go up a level. And I'm basically going to add a shadow right down the middle. Oops. Oh shoot, I did not mean to go there. That's okay. Shadow right down the middle, shadow right down the middle. And then we'll take the darkest one, we'll color in these windows here. And then we'll go underneath. Just one line underneath this tower, this ledge. The one here too. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, that's good for the grays. For these reds, I selected kind of this pinkish, reddish color. And then, like I said, I want the outsides to be the highlight. So I've got a slightly darker red that we're going to go right through the middle with it. Oops. Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah, you see salvageable mistakes. And when in doubt, you can always go darker. Okay. Here's my darker red. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Okay, I think we're good for the castle. Alright, let's come back to the world now. Alright, I'm going to go over... I'm just going to do the land first, and then we'll do the water. But I'm going to come back over with that really bright green. And I'm just going to fill everything in. Okay, because even if we don't end up seeing this color at the very end, it's still, you still want it mixed in with the darker colors. It'll be subtle. I mean, you might not even be able to notice it at all. But you still want to have it there to mix in with the darker colors. So now I'm kind of going back over. This is something I've been experimenting with, like leaving a dry edge. And I'm not, it worked for me before. I don't know if it would have worked better or differently had I not done the dry edge first. But we're going to go with it here. Okay, so there's my lightest color. We'll come to my second color. We'll start back. Okay, and I'm leaving a fair amount of space there from the edge of the world. I don't want to get too close to the edge. I don't want to fall off. It'd be bad. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to come back in with that first lightest color, but this time I'm going to use the chisel tip side. And I'm just going to do small little circles over this. And that kind of pushes the ink instead of like kind of pulling it. It's more for like, it almost acts as like it pushes the other ink almost out of the way. It's good for blending. Not my favorite for applying ink. I like the brush tips a little bit more. But what is nice, these chisel tips will last a lifetime of the entire marker. If you always use the brush tip, sometimes it will kind of wear away before the marker actually runs out of ink. So it's good to use these sides every once in a while just to preserve those other tips. Okay, let's go with a darker green now. And I think I have enough ink down right now that I can go straight to my darkest one. If it were a little bit drier, I'd probably want to have some more ink down. But I feel pretty good about what I have so far. So come here, here. here, here. And then again, I'm going to go back with that lightest color. And I'm going to use the brush tip this time. I'm just going to kind of go over everything. Just, Bob Ross would say, just bring it all together. Just kind of fades everything together. Things weren't drying out evenly. Maybe some things kind of blurry. Like right here, you can kind of see some lines. I'm going to try to get those lines out. You don't want to go crazy. Because if you go crazy overdoing this, you really will lose a lot of detail if you did include detail. That looks pretty good for the grass. All right, let's do the water now. Okay, so I got my lightest color here, and then come back over it. Yeah, I think this color might actually be the same as the other, the world color that we used at first. That's alright. Get that ink nice and get that paper nice and wet. That's kind of the purpose of the first layer. It's just to get everything a little bit wet, and you got a nice base color to work with. Because really, truly, like at the end of the day, I'm probably going to be seeing very little of this color as it is right now when the picture's all said and done, because I'm going to be mixing so many other colors in. But this is going to be my base color. This is going to kind of bring everything together, fill in the gaps between markers. Okay. Go with my second darkest. I'm just going to double check here. Yeah. Okay, and then go back over with that initial one. I'm using the chisel end right now. Well, on this marker I don't really have much of a choice, but I'm using that chisel end, and that's going to blur all this together right here. I'm trying not to go into that all the way to the edge because I am dragging some of this new color with me. So if I go all the way, I'm going to lose some of that spark that I was going for initially when I let it dry. Oh, that looks really nice. Okay, now let's use our darkest marker. Oh yeah. Oh, this turned out better than I thought it would, actually. I think that looks really nice. Alright. Oh, forgot the palm trees. Let's see. I'm just going to grab a marker here. I'm not too worried about these. These are going to be pretty low vision. But right now I'm doing something I shouldn't, and I'm just kind of grabbing from my marker box. And that's never really a good idea. Actually, I'm just going to color this in all the way. I'm pretty familiar with most of the colors, so I kind of know what they're going to look like. But at the same time, I'm actually going to, for the green here, I'm going to try to find the right green. And I'm going to say G2 and G3. So I think G3 is lighter. Yeah, G3 is lighter. So I'll start with the lightest color, and then with plants, you basically just get darker as you go towards the center. You gotta be careful with these small areas. The ink can kind of bleed, so if you put down too much ink, it might kind of bleed off the paper or into other parts of the paper they don't want it to. It's usually not a big deal. Alright, so I got that base color. Again, I don't like to do monotone, so I'm going to go ahead and just darken up the center of this thing. As long as there's some shadow, I think like your brain will kind of perceive it as being two-dimensional because it's not really the center of attention like when you're looking at this thing. Like when I'm showing my friends like everything I've done, I'll go through, here's one page, here's the next page, page 3, and they're not looking at these small details, but they notice them without realizing that they're noticing them. Okay, that's good for this. Okay. That looks pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. Okay. Let's do his shoes, shall we? So his shoes are pretty dark. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So my lightest color is actually very, very dark. We're going to go ahead and color the shoes in completely. But like, it looks really dark on this white paper. But like when I'm putting it here next to all these dark blues, it actually doesn't look all that dark. I mean, it looks like a brown. Over here, it almost looks black. I like working with these smaller areas because I can kind of do all the shoes at once and not have to worry about the ink drying on me. I can kind of slow down a little bit, take a little bit more time. Maybe even apply an extra layer of ink right away. Okay, we'll go with that second darkest color. And actually, I'm going to have the bottom sole, the bottom part, be this dark color all the way. Okay, and then we'll go into that really dark brown. Okay, and then what I can do is highlight. So I'm using this, and I'm just going to highlight the top a little bit. Okay, the blender marker is really good for highlighting, like so. And you can always go back over if you don't really like the way you did it. I don't care for that. So that looks pretty good like that. Okay, I'm happy with those shoes. Alright, facial hair. Actually, before we do facial hair, let's do the eyes. I like to do the eyes. I just selected this nice tropical blue. I have a reference Mario up on my computer screen that you can't see, but it's right here. That looks pretty good. But let's put a little twinkle in his star. Twinkle in his eye. Okay, that's better. Alright, now for the hair. Let's see. I think I have these out of order. His hair is pretty dark. Not gonna lie. That might not even be right. Yeah, I think that one's right. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm going to start off with... I'm just going to skip this color altogether. And let's do his eyebrows. Oh yeah, we're going to have to go to darker brown for this. But I've already started with this brown, so I'm just going to keep it going. This mustache is more of a black, really. But you can always kind of change it black later a little bit. By adding those gray tones. Oh yeah, this is not the right shade of brown. But that's okay, we always start light, and then we can kind of just go over with the darker markers if we're not happy. So start light. Work your way forward and back. Alright, let's grab this next marker. Eyebrows are underneath that brim, so we'll make them nice and dark all the way throughout. Mustache, let's see, let's go underneath the nose, add shadow there. sure where the shadow should be for this. And then let's go with that darkest marker. Eyebrows, you can't really tell. This is very subtle, you won't really see it, but it's there. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright, skin. Skin is always really challenging. So I have these all in order. This is the order right here. This was the eye color. I'm not the best at skins, but I'm going to give it my all. So usually R18 is a pretty good place to start for Caucasian or a lot of video game characters. Oh, I might be running low on this marker, but I've got a lot of backups of this one. Now I got to be careful because I just colored in the eyebrows and the mustache, but that is still wet ink right now. So, you know, really I should have waited because I might drag some of this ink in here. But I'm just going to be a little extra careful. Yeah, this doesn't even feel dark enough to me. But it's a good base, and it's just, like I said, it's just getting the paper wet. And it kind of gives us a little canvas that we can kind of mix and blend on a little bit later. Just that little bit of wet ink. But the color itself isn't going to dominate. Oh, let's try this one. Oh yeah, that's better. See, I'm leaving some light areas kind of by underneath his eyes. Actually, I don't like that. Let's just cover this all the way through. I like this new color a lot more. It's a little bit darker. I think it goes a little bit better with his clothing and everything. Yeah, I think this is my good base color. So now I'm going to drive this one. And with skin, it's like very subtle changes. Very, very subtle. You don't want to do the same thing in a lot of places. You kind of want to mix it up, and it'll just end up looking slightly more natural at the end of the day. I'm not an expert at skins, but I'm not bad. Okay, I'm going to fade that a little bit, so I'm going to come back with my lighter color, kind of fade that line right there. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's good for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, just let me know. I'll respond to it. Very new channel, so I don't anticipate a lot of feedback. It looks pretty good. Hi, in today's video, we're going to be drawing this picture right here. I've actually just finished, and we're going to rearrange some of the order of the video clips. So I'm going to play this at the beginning, even though I've already finished. Thank you. Enjoy.